Well, hope all of you love hearing stories. Because today I'm going to tell you the story of this little girl who loved a good story more than anything else in the world. Her grandmother would tell her fairy tales, and she would look up at the starlit sky and imagine these winged horses and talking birds, demons and magicians and kings and queens, her mind whirling with infinite possibilities. This made her believe everything was possible only if she dreamt. These stories were timeless and borderless. Even before she started going to school, she started traveling the world with her parents. She was sailing the high seas because her father was a mariner. So every port that she landed in, she got her fill of stories. There were seamen who told her stories. There were people from each of these countries who spoke about their culture, their civilization. In Russia, in the Seamen's Club, a stranger walked up to her and gifted her a babushka doll. And from him, for the first time, she heard the folklores of Russia. It was summers, and now she was back at her maternal grandparents' place in Shantiniketan, the land of Tagore. Here, for the first time, she gets to know that stories can also be told with the help of songs and dances. She experiences the dance dramas of Tagore and even gets to participate in one. Here she plays Chitrangada, the Manipuri war princess. And this princess, this warrior princess of Manipur, she would wield a sword, she would ride a horse and go to battle. But then she falls hopelessly in love with Arjuna, the third Pandava, and then lives happily ever after. She gradually starts reading, and the first few stories that she reads herself are through comic books. Though she loves the superheroes, but then she discovers Amar Chitrakatha. And here the stories of Puranas tell her all about the gods and the goddesses. And then she visits her ancestral village and sees goddess Durga with her celestial family, and everything starts to come to life for her. Now this transition from comic books to real books, this is pretty quick for her. And the floodgates of stories open. Now that she gets to read the world literature. She shuttles between vernacular literature to translated literature to authors from the Victorian era to the contemporary era. And she reads in 2 languages, so the storytellers, both from English and Bengali, they enthrall her. But gradually these written words, they start taking form of sound and starts to play out of this little box called the radio. There are plays that plays out to her, and in these rain-swept afternoons, she listens to the Arabian Nights, the tales from the Arabian Nights. She listens to Shehrazad and her Shehzada. Something like the podcasts or the audiobooks of today, something that nobody today can even imagine. From this little box, it gets to the bigger box, the magic box, or today the idiot box that you call it. So now her weekends are filled with Spider-Man and Mowgli. But then arrives the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. When Ramayana and Mahabharata start getting telecasted over the weekends, it's not just her, but the entire nation stops to watch these epics unfold. Stories are now being told like never before, because epics are the fountainhead of all stories. Soon you realize that after moving through millions of satellite channels, everything then converges into the streaming platforms of today. And she's now getting to live her dreams, because with a click of a remote, she can access the stories from around continents, around the world, and also she gets to watch stories from India in different languages. But if you would have realized by now that through all of this, there's only one thing that stayed constant. And this was the timeless charm of a good story. And by now you must have guessed. That little girl is no longer so little, and she's standing right here in front of you. So I'm Arnabi. I'm a corporate leader and a storyteller. I'm also a reader. And what I've experienced through these stories and my experiences have made me who I am today. But then, well, life has not been a fairy tale. As I played the role of a mother, a wife, a sister, a daughter-in-law, while I navigated through the corporate maze, I've had my ups and downs, my share of joy and pain. In the recent past, the whole world experienced its pandemic. And this was a time of global crisis for the human race. But it was also a time of crisis for me personally. Because I'm from the pharmaceutical industry, and it was a time of extreme stress for all of us. So every night while I slump back in bed after a day of tiring stress and waiting with bated breath that God knows tomorrow morning will bring what tragedy. During that time, there was only this power of a story that gave me that solace, that kept me grounded. In the recent past, I also faced a health scare. And there was a time when I did not know whether I'll be able to see the sun shine again. But guess what? I could trick my brain into believing that no matter what raged outside in the world, I could still climb the tallest peaks. I could dive into the deepest oceans. I could tame the dragons, and I could dine with the kings. Because guess what? No matter how smart you think your brain is, it can very easily get tricked and distracted and tamed into defocusing from something which is a worry or a problem currently to something more joyous and happy. You must all be sitting and wondering that, why am I telling you all of this? What's the point? Why am I sharing my life experience with all of you, and how does it help you? If you're anxious, if you're worried, if you're stressed, that's the time to reach out for something, to reach out for a fabulous new series, to reach out for a new book, to reach out for that Kindle that you've locked up somewhere. And you'll see that your brain quickly gets distracted and moves into something more joyful. This happens to us as human beings because we have imagination and empathy, something AI can never take away from us. So this was my story, and I'm sure all of you have your stories to tell, which I'm eagerly waiting to hear. But today, when you walk by, please stop at your neighborhood bookstore and try to pick up a book of your choice. Anything, the genre that you love. Maybe a whodunit, maybe a romance, maybe a thriller. Or while you're flicking through the channels of your favorite platform, why don't you stop and watch a web series from a different continent? What happens there is that you get to embark on an adventure. You get to experience something that you've never experienced before. So this is the power that you have in your own hand, because every book or every story is a holiday in your head. And this is not me saying, this is what Roald Dahl had said in Matilda. Thank you so much for listening.